Okay. I'm a little bit late to make this video, but on November 30th, last Friday, we lost one of the greatest presidents this country has ever had, George Herbert Walker Bush. It didn't matter if you were a Republican, a Democrat, a Libertarian, everyone liked him. He was, in my opinion, one of the top 3 presidents. I still hold my belief that Kennedy was our best president, but Kennedy, H.W., and maybe Lincoln were the top 3 in my opinion. He wasn't just someone that, I'm not going to name names, and I'm sure everyone's going to know who I'm talking about, but there are some presidents that we have had that do not care about anyone but themselves, and I think you know who I'm talking about. They don't think about others, treat others with respect, make fair laws. The list goes on. That's nice. This is not intended to be funny. Whatever. He put the country and everyone else's wants or needs before himself. He was centered around everybody else. He was so good at, he didn't care what he wanted in the back of his mind. It was just what was best for the country, which is something that I think a lot of presidents that were worse should have done. And again, I'm not naming names, but there have been some presidents who have been so, the only reason they want to be the president is the fame. George Herbert Walker Bush was not like that. He didn't care about the fame. He cared about running this country as it should have been ran for the past 40 presidents. He was president from 1980, I'm guessing, I think it was 1987 to 1991. That might be right. I'll put the thing on the screen. You'll see it right about there. You should be seeing something right now. If you're not, then I'm a lazy editor. After that was Bill Clinton, a very good president. Very surprising to many people that George H.W. was not reelected, but he was only one term, and that everyone was fine. And then George Walker Bush, who was president when I was born. And then we have Obama, one of our greatest democratic presidents that we've had. A lot of our best presidents have been Republican, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm saying that I'm trying to think of how I can say this without sounding like I'm biased against one party. The reason that the Republican presidents have been known more, and this is the way I'm going to put it, I think that they've been known because they have done more things that have changed the way this country has worked. The Republican side of the party is you're isolated, well, not you're isolated, but you are on your own to pay for this, do this, whatever. Whereas the Democrat side wants the government to be involved with everything, or almost everything. And Obama was one of our greatest Democratic presidents we have had. And now, of course, we have Donald J. Trump, who is very mixed on opinions. I'm not going to share mine, so don't ask. But George H.W. Bush, when I was growing up in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, when we would talk about presidents, we always brought up who the oldest living president was, and it was Herbert Walker Bush. So now our oldest living president is Jimmy Carter, if I remember correctly. I think it's Jimmy Carter. I think Jimmy Carter and Bush were born the same year, just different times, but Bush was born before Carter. Hopefully you watched the TV this afternoon at about 4 o'clock, well, a little after 4 o'clock, of his procession, the funeral, not funeral procession, but the carrying of the casket into the capital of the nation. If you didn't, I recorded about 10 minutes of the TV so that people who could not see it can see it here. So let's cut to the TV footage.
Another 21-gun salute for our 41st President, George H.W. Bush, as we watch his son look on and say goodbye. As the pallbearers bring that casket up the Capitol steps.
Don't drop it.
As you mentioned, Nora, such a delicate, choreographed, exact movement. Casket being preceded by the Special Honor Guard. Casket reaches the top of the steps here, it'll be greeted by President Bush's former Vice President Dan Quayle, also James Baker, who was also the former Secretary of State, and White House Chief of Staff, who was on the plane as well, and with the President in his final moments, Andy Card, former Vice President Dick Cheney, Elizabeth Dole, Bob Gates, Colin Powell, Senator Lamar Alexander. The list of names is pretty amazing to think about. And the comment that Bob Gates made, by the way, after the president passed, regarding what he did and his stewardship of this country and this world, for that matter. when he said there's no precedent in all of history for the collapse of a heavily armed empire without a major war. He was a figure of enormous historical importance.
One of our most consequential presidents, presiding over a change of the global world order, and has been remarked, did not spike the football with the fall of the Soviet Union. And I think his life, I'm touched by this because it's extraordinary to see this, and I'm also just reminded about the nobility of service to one's country. And I wonder if that's a lost ideal in some ways. And so for all of us to pause and remember about the deep sacrifice that our men and women in the military make, to have a commander-in-chief who has served and honored it. He is the last president to have served combat.
As John Dickerson, President George W. Bush watches the casket of George H.W. Bush pass by him.
It's just, you can see, I mean, the Bushes make fun of that they're a family of criers, and I was at a funeral once, and George Herbert Walker Bush, eulogizing his friend Hugh Sidey, the former journalist, broke down, and it was a sign of the deep friendships he had, and so his son, it's got to be just overwhelmingly emotional watching this beautiful tribute at the beginning of this ceremony.
And we heard from James Baker yesterday when he was recounting those final moments that he was there for with the former president, that 40 minutes before he passed, in those final moments when he was calling all of his children, the very last phrase was to Bush 43, to the former president, George W., saying, "I love you too."
And this is the most, in my opinion, beautiful building in all of America, the nation's capital. I've worked in the Capitol, I've worked at the White House. The White House is impressive, it has a grandeur, but I think the Capitol is the most beautiful building in all of America. Its architecture speaks to the world about its lofty aspirations, its high ideals, and those who work in it love and revere it for that reason. And George Bush is returning to the place where he started his political career as a member of the House of Representatives, elected in 1966. Lying in the rotunda is close to his political origins as a member of the House, first and foremost, and serving in government in many other capacities. I got a note from Tom McMillan, a Democrat from Maryland who was in Congress during Bush's presidency, and he recounts the story, February 26, 1991. He's in the House gym. President Bush was in the House gym because he retained his House gym privileges even as president. He's playing the hit. That is to say, Tom McMillan is in the gym. He notices on CNN that Saddam Hussein has surrendered. He knows President Bush is in the sauna, and he wrote me a note where he says, "By then, President Bush was in the sauna with his buddies. I turned to the Secret Service agents and asked if the president knew about this development, and they told me to tell him the good news. So I opened the door of the sauna. With the steam blocking my view, I said to the president that I had just heard that the war was over. He said, 'Tom, that is truly great news, and thanks for letting me know. I've wondered how often one has had the opportunity to tell a president that a war is over.'" That was told to the President of the United States in the House gym by a Democrat who he knew and had a good relationship with. That in itself is a kind of illustrative story about George H.W. Bush, his relationship with the House, and his bipartisanship.
And look at this from the dome of the Capitol, looking down now. This is where the body will lie in state. You know, the part that I find so reassuring about this is its sameness. We do this the same way, in the same way we vote our presidents in, they take the oaths, they pledge to defend the Constitution. There are no oaths to people, but to the Constitution. And this is just one of the ceremonies that forms the foundation of our government. And to me, that's the part that I feel good about.
The ritualistic fabric of American political life.
It's hard not to feel good about the country when you watch all of this happen this afternoon, while we also remember his service.
But as George W. Bush said, "My father taught me that But the office of the presidency is more important than the man who occupies. Whoever occupies that office should bring honor to that office. And we should point out that the Lincoln catafalque right there, Bob, as you mentioned, what's the same? That's the same since 1865. Built to support Lincoln's casket. And if you come and visit this beautiful building, as Major mentioned, you can see the catafalque. It's held down in the basement and you can walk by and see it, or you can visit in the next day or two and see President George Herbert Walker Bush lying in state.
Before the public is invited, though, what we're about to watch here is the service that you're about to watch. You'll hear the invocation, remarks from the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. Will speak Paul Ryan, the outgoing Speaker of the House. Will speak the Vice President. Will then speak, you'll see America the Beautiful performed by the U.S. Naval Academy Glee Club. Laying of wreaths by the Senate Majority and Minority Leaders, a laying of wreath by the House Speaker, a laying of wreath by the Vice President, another performance by the Glee Club, and then benediction. When all that is finished this evening, there'll be an organized departure from the rotunda, and then the public viewing begins tonight at 7:30. And again, we'll run through Wednesday morning. Let's pause again here.
Alright, I'm gonna stop filming. I think you got the gist of it. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut the video off. Maybe. Okay, now that you've seen the TV footage, I really don't have much else other than we lost one of the greatest people this country has ever had. He was so kind and just so humble about everything that it was impressive the way he handled things. They were intense. And we're going to miss him dearly. Just like the country is going through a little bit of a hardship. It's very similar to when Kennedy was assassinated. I don't know if it's quite as much trouble or hardships, since I think Kennedy's death was a lot more traumatizing than Bush's death. Bush did not get shot in the head by and I'm going to use a cuss word, a total dick. And it's a lot less hard to deal with. Kennedy's death was like 9/11, only 100 times lower on the scale. So that's what I think of Bush. I'm very sad. I know our country is. And I would actually like to also mention, I'm going to get off the topic of Bush. Today is Monday the 3rd, December 3rd. Bush died on November 30th. Today, what was I going to say? I lost my train of thought. Hold on. Okay, I remember my train of thought. Also, we are going to have a moment of silence and darkness for George. Okay. Turn the lights back on. So on that note, today is Ozzy Osbourne's birthday. If you don't know who Ozzy Osbourne is, you're either a millennial who sucked into Fortnite, or you've been living under a rock. I've never played Fortnite. Thank you. Happy birthday, Ozzy Osbourne. You are one of my favorite music people, though you were very... I listened to The Crazy Train on repeat so many times. I can't get enough of Crazy Train. It's also his most famous song, and I'm using my mom's iPhone to play it off of. So that's it. Thank you for watching, and happy birthday, Ozzy Osbourne, and George H.W. Bush, we're gonna miss you. You were our best president. At least one of them. Bye. I knew that was gonna happen.